Welcome back to Blowing the Doors Off. I'm your host, Ethan Gomberg. Tonight, I'm going to talk about the European Super League, not to be confused with the European Superhero League. Will Wunderbar Woman catch Bon Voyage? Find out this Sunday at 8/7 Central. As you all know, this show was inspired by Last Week Tonight. For the sake of John Oliver, I will be calling this sport football. Since one revolution in global football is going on right now, why not add another one to it? This is our chance in America to change soccer to football and American football to hand egg. So whenever you tweet hashtag say no to Super League, don't forget to also add hashtag say no to soccer and hashtag say yes to hand egg. You know what? Throw the metric system in there too. Last week, the footballing world had the busiest news cycle in history. And I know Americans often disregard the sport, but there are some parallels in this story that are strikingly similar to events you may be familiar with. You've got the attempt of a corrupt businessman to manipulate the long-accepted current model of football to concentrate power for their own self-interest. In response, you have the widespread condemnation by the public. You even have a 74-year-old president who starts the whole thing and also downplays the number of protesters. The only piece missing is someone dressed like QAnon shaman. Oh, just kidding. Of course there was. But unlike America in 2021, the entire footballing world was united against this attempt to overthrow the system. So let's get into the proposed Super League and how it fell apart, what it means for the future of football, and why any of this matters.
Shortly before midnight on the 18th of April, 12 European clubs released a joint statement that threatens to change football forever. It announced a break from UEFA and the intention to join a new midweek Super League. And those 15 teams will, according to reporting by The Athletic's Adam Crofton, collectively receive €3.5 billion for joining. It was revealed by Reuters that JP Morgan, the US investment bank, would be providing the initial funding for the league. So, while the Super League is intended to fill the midweek calendar slots occupied by the Champions League, participation may prevent the teams from taking part in all other competitions, including their own domestic leagues.
I will admit that watching the best teams in the world play each other is thrilling, but to see them week after week ruins the excitement. I've seen plenty of people use analogies to explain the Super League, like Meryl Streep breaking off from the Oscars to film her own award show. But I can think of no better analogy than a bowl of Lucky Charms. You have two components, the toasted oat pieces and the marshmallow bits. Together, they make for a great combination, but the ratio is important. You have to have more of the toasted oat pieces to offset the sensation of the marshmallow bits. And the same goes for being a football fan. The best clubs, the Man Cities, Barcelonas, rely on their lower tier clubs, just like how the marshmallows rely on the toasted oats for their appeal. And the European Super League is as if General Mills, the owner of Lucky Charms, were to separate the two contents. The toasted oat pieces alone would be too boring to consume without the marshmallows. And consuming the marshmallow bits alone would be overwhelming. I mean, sure, it's exciting, but any loyal Lucky Charms lover would know it's not the same. And you'd also no longer be able to find one of those special variant pieces that have both toasted oat and marshmallow morphed together. You know, the Leicester Cities, who have the unexpected potential to make your year. And in this analogy, Florentino Perez is trying to sell this massive bag of marshmallows. Perez is the orchestrator of the Super League and also the president of Real Madrid. Here's his reasoning for starting the Super League.
Mejorar el fútbol, salvar el fútbol que está en un momento de riesgo, de verdad. Y además, oiga, dice que va a empezar en el 24. En el 24.
No, no, Champions en el 24.
En el 24 estamos muertos.
Wait, we're all going to die by 2024? Does that mean Bon Voyage actually defeats the European Superhero League? Oh dear.
Porque yo estoy aquí para defender el Madrid y para mejorar. Morimos todos, los grandes, los medianos y los pequeños. Y el nuevo formato, que dicen que entra en el 24 ya hemos muerto todos, ya da igual lo que... Es que absurdamente cambió la historia del fútbol para bien y ahora lo que queremos hacer es salvar el fútbol para que los próximos 20 años...
So basically, in order to preserve footballing humanity and save football, he decided it was imperative to gather the 6 biggest England clubs, essentially killing off all other football clubs, all because of the recent pandemic that has limited financial resources. So the current model has teams not only competing to win their domestic leagues, but also fighting for a spot to play in the Champions League. Participants in the Champions League, where is that coming from? Participants are set each year based on the club's performance in their domestic leagues. But the Super League destroys that model by guaranteeing permanent members who face no risk of missing out on either the matches or the profits. And all of this has deservedly led to outrage among the fans.
Supporter protests around the world, with banners hung on stadium gates and graffiti denouncing the greed.
For the Super League! For the Super League! For the Super League! For the Super League! For the Super League!
I love how football fans turn even a vulgar message into a catchy chant. If it's vile, sing it with style. Now, the clubs who have been excluded were obviously against the league, as their incomes and audiences would plummet. But they made sure to poke some fun at the matter too. Bray Wanderers of the second tier of Ireland tweeted, "We wish to confirm that we will not be taking part in any European Super League," which was followed by, "We've won the same amount of Premier League titles as Spurs. Bray Wanderers, I applaud you." Also joining the opposition were the governing bodies of European and world football, UEFA and FIFA. The president of UEFA had some strong words.
This idea is a spit in the face of all football lovers, as previously announced by FIFA and the 6 confederations. The players who will play in the teams will be banned on playing the World Cup and Euro. Whoever thinks Super League is about money and UEFA is about money as well is not right. Super League is only about money, but UEFA is about developing football.
It's worth noting that UEFA and FIFA likely have other interests at heart. The supposed existence of these two organizations is to ensure the game is spread all over the world, but as soon as they disagree with a new format, they ban players from representing their country and playing in their competition. In 2019, the New York Times did an interview with UEFA's president Alexander Ceferin when he was under pressure for a proposed format change that favored a group of the biggest clubs in Europe. And Ceferin mocked the criticism by saying one way of operating is shouting, "The rich will take everything." Fast forward 2 years and that's exactly what he's saying now. And keep in mind, this is a guy who insists UEFA isn't about money, but he makes $1.6 million a year. The point is, UEFA and FIFA took on the role of David versus Goliath of the Super League chairman, but they shouldn't be judged as that. They're more like the corrupt snake from Adam and Eve. And on top of UEFA, politicians also expressed their disapproval, like President Macron of France and the buffoon himself.
We're going to look at everything that we can do with the football authorities to make sure that this doesn't go ahead in the way that it's currently being proposed. I don't think that it is good news for fans. I don't think it's good news for football in this country. And don't forget, these clubs are not just great global brands. Of course they're great global brands. They're also clubs that have originated historically from their towns, from their cities, from their local communities. They should have a link with those fans.
Boris the Builder is right. Football is the people's game. And fortunately, the people's voices were heard as teams announced their withdrawal from the Super League within 48 hours.
The brand new European Football Super League that was announced on Sunday has crumbled. All 6 English clubs have abandoned plans to join the breakaway league. Only a handful of Spanish and Italian clubs remain involved.
Barcelona is one of the Spanish clubs that have yet to announce their departure. But it's not surprising given their past attempts at secession. Despite this, the Super League chairmen haven't fully backed down. In response to the fallout, they released a statement saying that they're planning to, quote, reshape the project. So clearly, Florentino Perez is still committed, with the driving force behind this scheme as pure greed and a desire for power. And if you want proof, just take a look at his career. Perez lived a double life as the Secretary General of the Democratic Reformist Party in Madrid, while simultaneously running a campaign for the president of Real Madrid. where he would manipulate the global footballing landscape to rise to the top with the ultimate objective of dismantling the fair model of world football to form a super league, consequently causing a worldwide resistance. Florentino Perez is Emperor Palpatine, the Super League is the Galactic Empire, and the worldwide resistance is the Rebel Alliance. Also in this depiction, every football player is Jar Jar Binks. Yellow card for flopping. Yusa in big doo-doo Jar Jar. The reality is that there are larger trends at play here, and even though the Super League seems to have failed, the current economic and political issues still remain. First is the growing inequality in the game. Football is no exception to the global financial impact of the pandemic, and revenues are now concentrated among fewer nations, leagues, and clubs. And a consequence of this is exactly what we saw unfold with the Super League. A handful of the top clubs that have dominated their domestic league feel that they belong in an elite European league. But remember, it's primarily the owners who are at fault. Just like the world's ultra-rich, they can't accept that the way to solve problems created by extreme inequality is to simply reduce inequality as opposed to sealing themselves in a protected bubble. Second, there's recently been a rise in investment banks and hedge funds in football, both as owners and investors. You heard JP Morgan mentioned earlier as the bankers for the Super League, but other Americans are involved as well. In fact, 3 out of the 5 chairmen of the league are American businessmen, and for them, maximizing profits is a much larger priority than winning over the fans. And third, there's been a significant politicization of team ownership. The owner of Chelsea, Roman Abramovich, is close allies with Vladimir Putin. So close that one biographer described the relationship as that between a father and a favorite son. Now that really took me by surprise. I was convinced Putin didn't have a favorite anything. I mean, maybe a favorite assassination weapon of choice, but a child? I assumed his 2 children were both his least favorite. But the point is, even though the footballing world has united across rivalries to stop the Super League, it's important for fans and the media to not be complacent with this victory. They must continue to push for reforms at all levels. And the legendary Man U defender Gary Neville, who's been at the fore of this movement, put it best.
We have to work hard together to ensure that ownership rules in this country are changed, that we have a system whereby this cannot happen, whether that is government intervention, independent regulator, whether it be a fan-owned club rule, whatever it is, we have to make sure that this is the catalyst for change.
One solution that's being thrown around is called the 50+1 rule. In Germany, the 50+1 rule means that in order to compete in their domestic leagues, teams must grant the majority of voting rights to the fans. This was the main reason why no German clubs joined the Super League. German clubs are allowed investors, but there isn't one majority owner whose primary aim is to make money. The implementation of the 50+1 rule in England and across Europe would be a step in the right direction, because unlike Lucky Charms, football should never be about the pot of gold.